Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to talk about a controversial passage of play in the House of Commons today, where John Bercow, as expected, turned down the government's request to have another vote today on the Letwin Amendment, which was debated and voted on and successfully voted on Saturday, as well as the fallout from it and what that may mean in terms of the future direction for this week. But first, if you find yourself enjoying the video, then please click the like button and subscribe to the channel. So, first of all, the decision was that the government couldn't just bring exactly the same motion forward again. John Bercow gave his reasons by saying that nothing really has changed. Remember, there are rules around being able to bring forward motions in the House of Commons. One of them is you are not, once a motion has been brought forward and debated and voted on, you are not then allowed to bring substantially the same motion again before Parliament in the same session of Parliament. And this, as the Speaker was pointing out, was the very next sitting day. It is definitely within the next session, the same session, sorry. Now, what various people were trying to argue was that there is a circumstance under which you can do that. And that is if circumstances have changed significantly, that would have affected the way people voted, that the MPs voted, and that there's a reasonable likelihood that MPs would vote a different way because of these new developments. So what was this major development that's suddenly taken place between Saturday and today? Well, they claim it's because Boris Johnson sent the letter requesting an extension, and that changes everything. Now, there were a couple of Brexiteers, and I have to make the point here that the Speaker, when taking his points of order is when MPs get to stand up and say, OK, well, you made that judgment, I've got questions about it. And then he takes those questions. And the first two were quite polite about it. They were stating their opposition to his judgment, but they're quite polite about it. And they were basically making the point, well, look, you know, we didn't know that Boris Johnson was going to send off that letter. And John Bercow, in his lengthy way, I'd have done it much shorter, but still diplomatic language, was basically saying, if you're asking me if in my judgment I considered the likelihood of the Prime Minister disobeying the law, no, I did not, was basically what he was saying. Because any MP that is trying to claim that they didn't know whether or not Boris Johnson would send the letter is basically saying they don't know whether Boris Johnson was going to obey the law. So it is quite right and proper that the Speaker should say he cannot imagine that MPs, as part of their decision-making process, would have considered that. And we also have to bear this in mind. If there are any MPs saying, OK, I voted for the Letwin Amendment to make Boris Johnson send the letter off because I want an extension if it would otherwise mean no deal. If that is now reversed, Boris Johnson gets his deal to be approved, he can then retract that letter. So we still don't get the extension, which means we drop out with no deal. So actually that wouldn't have changed matters anyway. But after that, there were some very extremely rude responses to the Speaker from people who simply wouldn't have it. One of them is Sir Bernard Jenkins, and he actually threatened the Speaker, reminding him that he's on a committee that's looking at the role of the Speaker after he said his piece. To which John Bercow just got up and said, well, it's quite right and proper that you look at my role, basically. But he also then made the point very robustly that these Brexiteers keep saying how biased he is by allowing emotions and allowing questions from Remains and things like that. And again, I make the point that he took points of orders, predominantly the vast majority, from people who were disagreeing with his judgment, in other words, the Brexiteers. And he also made the point that at numerous times in the past, he has allowed urgent questions, which are to his discretion, emergency debates, which are to his discretion, as well as even backbench motions, which are again down to his judgment, from Brexiteers. He reminded Sir Bernard Jenkins, in fact, the House, that Bill Cash, actually it is still Bill Cash, I think, Sir William Cash, whatever, who is like chief Brexiteer, real proper no dealer, he put as a backbencher, this wasn't the government, as a backbencher, put forward a motion about a referendum on the UK's membership of the EU back in 2013, before it was government policy, and John Bercow allowed it. simply because it was a sort of thing that would have interest in the House, and that's the basis on which he chooses his motions. And so he robustly was saying, look, no good you call him biased. He didn't actually say that, but he said, I have allowed all these things from Brexiteers over the years, right? Numerous times. And that is true. Every time they call bias because he allows one from the other side, they conveniently forget that he allows it from his side. So the judgment was made about not allowing this motion today in the only way that he could. You know, Erskine made, which is the rules for parliamentary procedures. And as he's noted, it goes back to like the 17th century, the start of the 17th century. You cannot keep bringing a motion up because it just wastes parliamentary time if the government keep bringing it up. Now, there was a bit of a cheeky one, again from a Brexiteer who stood, I forget his name actually, but I've seen him a few times, who was saying, yeah, I quite agree that MPs shouldn't keep being asked the same question till you get the right result. And the same should apply to the people as well, basically saying that's why we shouldn't have another referendum. Now, John Bercow was very diplomatic and didn't actually say anything. He just said, yeah, you're a nice bloke, all the rest of it, and let him sit down. But I would have been cheeky. I would have made 4 points. The first of which is that the rule applies to MPs and not members of the public. The second of which is that the rules apply in a single session of Parliament. You can vote on the same motion again. If a motion comes up and it's voted on, whichever way it goes, you can ask the same question in the next session of Parliament. And there have been 3 sessions of Parliament since the referendum. Third, you can also vote again when circumstances change. This was their argument for allowing the motion again. They knew it would be the same motion. They knew they couldn't have it on that basis. The Brexiteers were arguing circumstances have massively changed because Boris Johnson has sent the letter. To which, as I say, the response is, yes, he had to. We knew he had to. Nothing's changed. But you can when circumstances change. Well, since the Brexit referendum, a hell of a lot of circumstances have changed. Massive amount. This deal right now is not what was promised by anyone. And it's not just, oh, minor little points. It is nothing like what anyone promised. And the fourth point I would make is that the question need not be the same in another referendum. You could make it substantially different. The first referendum was, do you want to leave or do you want to stay? The second referendum could be, do you want this deal or do you want to stay? Or do you want this deal, no deal, or want to stay? Completely different. But that is the situation, as I say, just to try and explain it to people. There's going to be an awful lot of controversy over this. Another, shouting of bias. I'm not going to go through the individual points that were made on either side. But as I say, most of the points were made by the Brexiteers. But it is just a sign of their nastiness. Not all Brexiteers, of course. As I said, some of them were very polite about it. But there is a nastiness there, threatening the role of the Speaker. Remember, the Speaker's having to stand down as a result of government dirty play anyway, hopefully to be replaced by someone worthy. But either way, it would be in the new next month anyway. Hope you found the video interesting. If you'd like to support the channel further, then please click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.